It finally happened. Pistols and Battlebit Remastered are getting a much needed rework, a much needed update. The developers posted in their Discord server what we can expect, and in this video we're going to be going over those patch notes, and we're going to be going over the pistols, which ones are going to be the best after the update, and we're going to take you into the firing range to show you where they're currently at pre-buff, pre-rework. So let's get into it. So let's start off with the M9. So they increased the damage from 30 to 32, and you might say that's good, right? Yes, it is, but it doesn't do a whole lot to change the bullets to kill. It's still 4 bullets to no armor, 4 bullets to light armor, 4 bullets to normal armor, 5 to heavy, and 6 to exo. That being said, I'm going to jump a little ahead. The fire rate is increased from 4 to 600, which that means the TTK is buffed. The TTK is buffed from 450 milliseconds to 300 milliseconds. That's significant. 150 millisecond change. And again, that's due because of the fire rate buff, not the damage increase. You will see they increased the vertical recoil. They doubled it from 0.4 to 0.8. Now, this is a change that's basically meant to say, hey, yes, we're making the pistol better. We're buffing its damage. We're increasing its fire rate, and we're increasing its velocity. But we don't want you to be sniping with this thing from 100 meters out, basically full auto, clicking very fast. We want you to use this thing as pistols are intended from 30 meters in. And that's what the vertical recoil changes for, and that horizontal recoil increased from 0.4 to 0.6. And as I mentioned, they increased the fire rate. Velocity was increased as well by 50. That'll help out. That'll help the range of this thing a little bit and make it a little more hit scan from that like 50, 30 meters in mark. The sound spread was lowered, good change. Draw speed increased. Now, when they say increase, they actually mean that the draw speed is faster. The way they word it makes it sound like it's slower, but the draw speed will be faster of this thing, and you'll notice that as a common theme as we go through the patch notes. That's a very good thing because pistols are supposed to be something you can draw fast and rely on in video games, and they drew very slowly in Battlebit, very slowly. So this is a very good change, a much needed change, and it'll make pistols seem more reliable because you're not going to be tanking 3 or 4 bullets before you can even pull your pistol out now. That very good change. Mag size increased from 12 to 13. That's just to compensate for the fire rate buff, so you don't feel like you're using your mag instantaneously. Now, the MP443. Damage increased from 25 to 27. Now, the MP443 was one of the more solid pistols in the game, and it's even better now after this change. The bullets to kill did not change, but the fire rate did, as you see, from 700 to 750, and thus the TTK changes. The TTK changes from 257 milliseconds to 240 milliseconds. And the recoil is increased, as you see, from 0.1 to 0.3. That's very negligible horizontal recoil increase. You probably won't even notice it. The velocity was increased, again, to make this thing seem more hit scanny at those close ranges. Sound spread was lowered. The draw speed was increased. Again, that's a good change, so you'll be able to pull out the pistol faster. And the mag size was increased, again, to compensate for the fire rate buff. The USP is one that a lot of people wanted to see buffed significantly, and they certainly took a crack at it. The damage was buffed significantly from 25 to 30. It means it kills 1 bullet faster to light and exo armor targets, but other than that, it's the same. And the vertical and horizontal recoil increase on the scene is very negligible. 0.4 to 0.7 and 0.4 to 0.5, you won't really notice that. Bullet velo was increased by 70 from 250 to 320. Yes, it's less than MP443, but it's more than M9. So bullet velo increase is good. Fire rate buff from 500 to 600. Now this is good because it basically makes the TTK almost 100 milliseconds faster, from 360 milliseconds to 276. One of the faster TTK pistols that isn't a Deagle, pretty much. So that's a very good change for the USP. Again, the draw speed buff is good, and sound spread lower is good. And the mag size was buffed by 3 for this thing, which basically means that it's almost 1 more potential elimination per magazine now. And again, they did that because they increased the fire rate, so they don't want you to be burning the whole magazine in like half a second. All right, the Glock. The Glock is like a fan favorite because it's a full auto pistol, and honestly, besides the Deagle right now, it's probably the next best secondary. But the Glock also got some positive changes out of this. It got a damage increase from 17 to 19. It got a sound spread lower. It got a draw speed increase and a mag size buff. But it didn't get a bullet RPM buff. It didn't get a fire rate buff. It didn't get a bullet velo buff. And so therefore the TTK is not going to change. However, it's already a strong weapon, and it just got even stronger with the damage buff, the sound spread lower, the draw speed buff, and the mag size buff. You basically get 1 more elimination per mag now with the mag size buff. So still a good change, but certainly now the M9, the USP and the MP443 are actually like almost as viable, if not more viable than the Glock now. Like they're peers now. It's not like, oh, the Glock is so much better than these pistols now, which that's going to be interesting. If we get through the higher damage pistols, it gets even more interesting. So I had originally recorded like the initial patch notes for the RSH-12, the Deagle, and the Unica, the higher damage pistols, but then they amended them. So initially they were going to nerf the Unica heavily with the damage, the run speed, and they were just going to reduce the recoil a little bit and increase the headshot multiplier and call it a day. And they buffed the RSH-12 greatly with the damage, and they nerfed the Deagle pretty heavily, but they amended that. So the Unica is not going to get its damage changed, and it's going to keep its run speed. And in addition, it's also going to get its recoil reduced, its first shot kick lowered, and it's going to get its reload speed lowered from 5 seconds to 4 seconds, its draw speed increased, and the headshot multiplier buff. So the Unica is going to stay okay. It's not going to be as viable as the RSH-12 or the Deagle, though, so it's kind of going to be mid still, and there's not going to be much reason to use it. And the RSH-12 is going to be getting a 69 damage. The RSH-12 is going to be getting a 70 damage, not a 72 damage. And the Deagle instead, I believe, is getting a 72 damage. Yep. 72 damage. So the RSH-12 is going to be getting a 70 damage. Light damage increase, a vertical recoil lower, horizontal recoil increase slightly. First shot kick lower. It's going to get a velo increase. That's going to help with the range. It's going to get an accuracy increase. It's going to get a reload speed increase from 4 seconds to 4.1. So it's going to feel better. Draw speed slight increase. You're not going to notice it that much. And the headshot multiplier is still getting buffed. So good change with the RSH-12. Definitely going to be more viable actually now. From 60 to 70. So keep in mind it's still a buff, right? They initially changed it from 60 to 72, but now they're changing it from 60 to 70. So and they're keeping the run speed, so it's not going to feel slower with the run speed, so that's a big thing. So RSH-12 overall is getting a buff because of the headshot multiplier, so they're buffing the damage and the headshot multiplier for it, so it's definitely going to feel a lot better. And the Deagle is still going to be viable. It's still going to one tap people to the face, and it's going to be getting a 72 damage from 90 to 72. Light damage lower, recoil increase, first shot kick increase, velo lower. Actually, I think the RSH-12 is going to feel nicer. In my opinion, it's going to have a higher bullet velocity, and it's going to have basically the same damage profile as the Deagle for all intents and purposes. The Deagle's going to do 2 more damage. Deagle's going to do 72. Remember, the RSH-12 is going to do 70 now. But I just think the RSH-12 is going to feel a little bit nicer than the Deagle. But either way, both these pistols are going to one-shot people with the face and basically 2 tap to the body, 2 or 3 tap to the body in most cases. If they're like exo or heavy, it might be 3, but most of the time it's going to be 2 tap to the body. So, good. Again, as I said, some of these changes sometimes feel willy-nilly. Like they don't really make a lot of sense to me. Like seems like you're just making changes for the sake of making changes. Like I don't like specifically with the Unica, like that one is just really confusing to me, and some of the changes they did to the Deagle, but the rest of the changes seem pretty good and pretty well needed, and they're going to be very well received. I want to take you into the firing range real quick to show you where these weapons currently stand, and then so to understand why exactly they needed to buff the fire rate of these 3 pistols specifically, I'm going to just use them. I'm not going to slap anything on them. I'm just going to put them base because it doesn't really matter for pistols. But look at this. Fires very slowly, right? The reload speed's kind of eh. Look at that. Like, that's why they need to buff the fire rate of this thing. That's why they're buffing it, right? And if we look at the USP, it's kind of the same story, where the fire rate's just like, it's just mid. It's just bad, right? And again, the recoil on these things isn't bad. The recoil they changed it to is not bad. You're not going to notice the recoil changes that much. So this is why they're making the fire rate changes. And then lastly, we go with the MP443 because I skipped it. My bad. This one is a little higher fire rate. And now these things are going to be able to tap pretty fast. The Unica. Now the Unica, again, not sure why the hell they changed this thing and made it worse when it's already pretty bad. Like, look, I'm aiming right at his head, but the bullet reloads so slow it doesn't do anything. Like, geez, man. And they made it even worse. Now, the RSH-12 is very interesting to me. I'll skip the Deagle for a sec. RSH, man. They basically are making this thing more controllable, more damage, buffing it all around pretty much. It's already kind of decent, but not the best, and they're making it even better. So this scene is going to be a beast in the next update. It's going to have a higher bullet reload, so it's going to see more hit scan from the like 50-meter range, and it's going to do chunky damage. Now the Deagle, my main pistol, man, the Desert Eagle. I'm gonna put a red dot on this thing because rip to the Deagle, dude. It's still gonna be very viable. I'm just exaggerating it because I love this thing. Look at that, man. It's almost a guaranteed 2-tap to the body. It is a guaranteed 2-tap to the body, actually. And it's a guaranteed 1-tap to the face when you don't hit the arm, when you don't hit the helmet. I just love it so much, dude, because I just can outplay targets. It's so good for aggressive players. Like, when you're, like, in a gunfight, and then you just pull this thing out and you go bam. It's so fun. I don't know. I just think at a certain point, like, weapon balancing is good, but in a casual game like Battlebit, you gotta let players have fun a little bit, especially with a secondary. It's one thing if a primary is broken, but you can only abuse a broken secondary so much, man. Like, I don't know. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it a lot. Let me know what you think of the pistol changes in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to read the comments, and I will see you next video. Again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated. It helps the page reach more people, and I'll see you next.